With that, we are ready with our next speaker, who is Greger Wikstrand, who will be joining us remotely in just a few moments. We will have to talk. He's from CGI, of course. I didn't mention that, but he will talk a little bit about the exit strategy needed when moving to the cloud. Because, as Mikkel Müller also mentioned earlier, this can be vital, even though you are only preparing to hop into the cloud. You also need an exit strategy. So now I hope I have a connection with Greger. I think I have. I can at least see you. Welcome, Greger.
Hi, and thank you.
Hi. Oh, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it's really exciting and I really enjoyed listening to the previous talk and hearing everything about the how to enter the cloud. Since I'm going to talk about the opposite, it's perfect combination, isn't it?
Exactly. I'm looking very much forward to your presentation. If you could just share your presentation with us, I think we are ready.
Okay. You should have it now.
Yes, we can see it now. If you just click the hide button, we don't have to look at that anymore. Perfect. All yours then.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So my name is Greger Wikstrand. I'm the CTO for Cdi Scandinavia. If you don't know, Cdi is a global company based in Canada with about 77,000 members. And we work across all areas of IT, including cloud and private cloud. But we also we are a SaaS provider, an IP provider. Lots of companies in Scandinavia are relying on CGI on a day-to-day basis. For instance, if you live in Sweden and you do your tax return, you will see when you log on, it will say powered by CGI. So everyone is ready for takeoff, right? Everyone is moving into the cloud, and I'm working with some clients who are saying, yeah, we're considering moving to the cloud, but some are already there and officially there, but actually unofficially, I think everyone is already in the cloud. There are various services. It's not just Azure and Amazon and Oracle Cloud and so on, where you can be in the cloud. There are also all the other services that you can have, such as the legal department goes and uses some contract database, or maybe the board members are using a service for document sharing, or maybe the marketing department is using some media tracking service. All of these are cloud services, or maybe facilities department are using have outsourced facility management, and the facility management company uses some cloud service to keep track of assets and work orders and so on. So then indirectly you are also maybe in the cloud. So there is no doubt that you are already in the cloud, even if you are thinking that you're now starting to move into the cloud. So we find that maybe 80 to 100 cloud services in the average company, regardless of how many one cloud strategies and so on you have. So you are already in the cloud, but when you are in the cloud, there will be rain, and I'll talk a bit about what kind of rain you can expect when you're in the cloud, and what kind of umbrella you need to bring to ensure that you get where you're going without getting too wet. Yeah, when it comes to all these kind of bring your own cloud solutions, it's not uncommon that someone took out the subscription on their company credit card, and then that's fine, of course, but let me tell you a few things that can happen. One thing, employee leaves the company and the credit card is naturally cancelled. So the service stops, and suddenly the service is completely vital. So how do you do it? Because it's all in the name of the employee, not in the name of the company. How do you get back into the account? Another example is that maybe you have some kind of innovation department and they spin up a few servers, and suddenly the innovation they started with a year or two later, it's a vital service for the company. And there you are with dependence on this credit card. And another thing that can happen in the credit card area is that you do this willingly, but that you don't consider that there are certain limits on how much you can buy on the credit card. So when your solution starts to grow, you will hit some quota limits and so on that you don't maybe have when you have a proper contract. Well, sometimes you can get boycotted, or you're for one reason or another. I'll give you another example. So in Venezuela, they're not very friendly with the United States. So a few years back, the president decided to put a boycott on Venezuela, and including barring them from using cloud services, and also barring U.S. companies to transfer money to Venezuela. So clients of, for instance, Adobe, professional photographers, they got their accounts erased, and they didn't get their money back. So you think, can it happen to me? Well, until very recently, there was this small harbor in Germany that was under boycott from the United States because of their role in the Russian pipeline project. So it could be that you don't do anything, but you're associated with someone who does something. And there are thousands of individuals and companies under boycott. So suddenly, you're boycotted from using your cloud provider, and there's nothing you can do about it. Or, if you don't properly police your users and they start using your cloud account to store their illegal material, or maybe like in the case with the discussion app in the US, Parler, where they got kicked off from AWS because they didn't follow the policy of policing their users. So sometimes something that you haven't done, but some users doing with you, and you can't show that you have done the due diligence of keeping track of your users, then either the police or the policy will kick you off from your cloud service. So another problem that is maybe not that you actually completely get kicked off your cloud provider, but that you become captive. So a lot of services, not only in cloud, but everywhere, have kind of entry pricing, where the service is new and you get it at a discount. But then when the service isn't new anymore, you don't get the discount. And the better the service, of course, the more it's worth, the more the price can go up. So customers tell me that they started at some certain price point, and then a year or two later, suddenly it's much more expensive, even though they didn't do anything. It's just because the price list was adjusted. And the more stickiness you have on this service, the more clever and more valuable, the more, of course, you can happen to end up in the problem of the being victim to pricing that becomes maybe prohibitive. It was Forbes predicted maybe a year ago that by 2025 it will be a major reason for companies to go bankrupt, because they can't keep control of their cost, and they can't correlate their cloud cost to their income. So you have lots of services, they're very expensive because the price has gone up, and you don't know if you can turn them off, and you don't know which cost is correlated to an income. And you are in a chaos situation, and you just have to do something very drastic, pull the plug. And if you're not prepared, that means going bankrupt, or at least that's what Forbes predicts. Then we have the quality problem. And I read somewhere recently, a few days back, that it was the 10th outage for a certain cloud provider in the last 30 days. Not a complete outage, but a partial outage. We had the problem with log on, to Google Cloud and Microsoft in December. That was a partial problem that went away, but so there is a problem that maybe what you signed up for is not what you're getting. You're not getting at all the quality that you need or expect. So, I mean, this is a water purification plant, and if there comes too much rain, it will overflow, and the dirty water will enter the lake, and you can't swim anymore, right? And then there is the obsolescence problem. So you go for a service that you think is like the perfect service. It has everything you need. So you're going with Foursquare or, I mean, where is your Nokia phone? Where is your Kodak camera? So just because someone is the market leader today doesn't mean that they will continue to be the market leader in the future. I mean, Kodak, if you think about it, they even invented a digital camera, and still they weren't able to remain. So when you have a single sourcing strategy and your provider is not viable anymore, it could be that you have to move very quickly if you're going to continue your own business. And I'm sure you have all seen all the research on how fast things change nowadays, and how short, how many patents are produced, and how short-lived the truth is. They say that the medical truth is valid for 7 years before it's contradicted. For instance, you've seen all the numbers on how short a time that companies remain on the Fortune 500 now compared to 50 years ago. So I think you're all aware of the pain of the obsolescence problem. That could happen to any service that you're relying on. So I think there is no doubt that it is not unlikely that something will happen where you need to head for the exits. And on your building, you will have a fire escape, right? That's mandated by law that you need to have sufficient fire escapes. But there is no law that forces you to have a fire escape, or maybe there is if you are in a national critical business. But for most people, there is no law forcing you to have an exit strategy. But maybe you should have anyway, because you think you have a perfectly good solution that is compatible with GDPR, and then comes Schrems 2, and you find that your solution isn't compatible. And maybe you do a new solution, and then comes Schrems 3, and then it's not compatible either. So it could be that you invest a lot of money in something that is not long-term viable. So what you can do about it? So the layering strategy. The layering strategy is when you put an abstraction layer between yourself and the underlying service. Of course, this means that if you have pre-made plugins, you can switch from one database to another, or from one cloud provider to another without noticing any effects. But on the other hand, the disadvantage of the layering strategy is, of course, that it's like putting gloves on your hand. You can't feel, you don't have the same touch, the same connection. So you will have to forego any kind of unique service that is provided by the underlying layer. Another thing you can do is to have a private cloud. So the private cloud strategy means that you have your own cloud in your own data center, and that can be like a separate cloud or hyper-converged. It could be that you have an Azure Stack or Google Anthos or an Amazon Outpost or whatever it is in your own data center that allows you to freely move from public cloud to private cloud. It's an expensive solution, but it works. Another solution that we do for some customers is that you have a dual cloud strategy. So for instance, in CDI, we have a service called Payment as a Service that allows interbank payments. And we do that depending on the customer requirements, but sometimes we do it in a dual cloud strategy. So even if the whole cloud provider should be unavailable, we still have the solution and hot configuration running in the other cloud as well. And then the multi-region strategy is when you go with maybe only one cloud provider, but you use multiple regions. So availability regions, meaning that even if the provider is unavailable in the region where you usually have it, you have a hot standby in another region that allows you to quickly come up again. And then, of course, backup. Backup is crucial. And unlike what many people think, backup is usually not included in your cloud provider plan. And even if it is, if you lose contact with the cloud provider, what will you do with your backup? So you need to have your backup in an independent location and in a data format where it can be used in another application, so that you are not losing your backup. And that it remains useful to yourself, because, as they say, it's not the backup that you need, it's actually the recovery. And then you need to really know your facts. What are you using? I told you that many companies use 80 to 100 cloud services, maybe without even anyone knowing about it. You need to know exactly what you have and where, because otherwise you don't even know what to plan for and how to recover when you get locked out. And of course, you need to have a recovery plan. I mean, a real recovery plan that you practice on and actually put in place and use. Because if you don't use it, how will you know that it works? And how will it even work if you have never tried it? I mean, everyone has a backup, right? But not everyone has tried to restore from backup. And the same thing when you have your cloud exit strategy. How will you come back? Does it work? You will have to practice. And finally, how do you know when to trigger your exit strategy and not practice, but do it for real? You really need to listen for the signals and know when to do it. And these things can come slowly. You know it well in advance, or they can come really quickly, such as when you have, like the statistics agency in Portugal, they got 12 hours to stop using a certain cloud service as a mandate from the regulatory agency. Or if I go back to Parler, they had basically no time at all before they were kicked off. So the signals can come very, very quickly, or they can come slowly. But if you're not listening, you can't hear them. So thank you. That was the presentation.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Greger. We do have just 1 minute. I wanted to ask you a little bit about this exit strategy. Is it a yes or no situation? Do I need to be in the cloud, not be in the cloud? We have talked a lot about multi-cloud. Should I have an exit strategy for my most critical applications, IT systems, or is it a yes or no scenario?
No, I think that you need to have it for your most critical applications, especially. They are the most, but then you need to know which they are, and that goes back to one of my last slides when I said know your facts. So you need to know which applications you have, what they do for you, what value they're bringing, what they're using, and so on.
Yeah. Okay.
And only then can you make a proper plan.
Of course. Okay, thank you so much.
So graceful degradation.
Of course, for sure. Thank you so much for your presentation.